What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Dawson, and we got a little bit of a weird episode today. UConn is coming off of an 81-46 win over East Texas A&M Commerce State, or whatever the program is called right now. They're sitting at 4-0 on the season. They are top 5 in KenPom. They are number 2 in the AP poll. They have won 4 games by an average margin of 38 points. And because of the way that last night's game ended, and because of the way that Coach Hurley walked into his press conference, it does feel like we need to have a little bit of a come to Jesus moment with this group and with this team, and kind of a little state of the union in terms of where this group is at this point in the season. Before we do that, let's listen to what Coach Hurley had to say in his post-game press conference, audio courtesy of my guy Gavin Keefe over at the New London Day.
Just comically bad. Second half rebounding so far below standard. Ball security throughout the game. It's been a long time since we've been that bad. To go negative assist to turnover ratio. We're one of we're one of the best passing and ball security teams in the country. So, I think at times we played hard, but once we got up to 37 with 12 minutes to go, and it turned into just a debacle out there.
So here's where I stand on this. First and foremost, there's only so much that you're going to be able to take away from any of these bye games. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter who the team is that is playing. It just, when you are playing teams, Sacred Heart, 337th on KenPom, New Hampshire, 356th on KenPom, Lemoyne, 339th on KenPom, East Texas A&M, 350th on KenPom. UConn could probably beat these teams by 30 in their sleep, and I think that the staff might tell you that last night they won by 35 in their sleep. It's hard to be able to evaluate just where the issues are when there's just such a talent advantage for UConn in this spot. But I also want to put some of this into context, right? Specifically last night's game. Practice started in June for these guys. They have been going hard for almost 6 months now. And it's UConn. It's Hurley. You know that those practices are tough. They're physical. They're intense. They're insane. The best opponent UConn has played so far was Rhode Island, and that was an exhibition game at Mohegan Sun that didn't really count, right? My guess is that a lot of these guys are probably getting kind of tired of playing some of this meaningless stuff, right? And a game is a game. A win is a win. It counts against your record. It counts against your metrics. It counts against your profile. I get all of that. But it's also kind of relatively meaningless when you don't really need to show up and play great to be able to win. You can develop some bad habits, whatever, right? I think a lot of these guys at this point are probably ready to face a real opponent, to face someone that's going to challenge them, to face someone that they're going to be able to get excited about, to face someone that the fans are going to find a way to be able to get excited about, right? And last night specifically, UConn got up big early, and it was the first time in these 4 games that they really jumped out to a big lead early. They were up by 20 in the first half. It was like a 37-point lead, early in the second half. And I think a group that is ready for Maui, that is ready for Memphis, that is ready for a real opponent, that is leaving for Maui on Friday, probably got a little sloppy because they were like, all right, this one's over. We could put this in the bag, right? It's human nature. These are 20-year-olds. None of that is surprising at all. The sloppy end should worry Hurley because he is the one that has to make sure these guys are locked in and perfectionists and doing the things that they're supposed to do and developing the proper habits and doing all of those things, right? That's what his job is as a coach. And when you kind of slip from the standard that has been set at UConn, he's got to put that back in line. It's just what you have to be able to do to keep that level of expectation and that level of success within the program, right? This is how he does it. This is the way that it works for him. And that's the way that he's going to continue to do it. It's not going to change coming off of back-to-back titles. He's going to keep being the same guy. My concerns with this UConn team are not what is happening in the micro. right? And what I mean by that is it's not the specific game, it's not these specific turnovers, it's not 19 turnovers against East Texas A&M, it's not Ahmad Noel looking sloppy at the end of a game, it's not some bad possessions from Samson Johnson in a 28-point blowout, right? Um, my concern is beyond just looking kind of dog shit for 15 minutes against your fourth opponent that you beat by 40 16 days into a season. My worry is a little bit bigger picture than that. We talked about it already on this pod quite a bit, but I'm not quite sure that their front line is up to the standard that we've become accustomed to over the course of the last years. And I'm not sure their point guard situation is either. And so let me kind of elaborate on that because it feels like I'm throwing some guys under the bus, and that's not what I mean to do. I'm less worried about the five spot than the point guard spot. I've said this before. I think Samson Johnson fouls too much. I don't think he is quite physical enough to be an offensive threat beyond kind of being that rim running target. You're not throwing the ball into him on the block and asking him to go make a play. He's not stepping out and spacing the floor on threes. He's a really good and useful five man, but I think that he's more of a piece. And my belief is that once Terrace Reed gets to the point where he's kind of reading the game and understanding the game and processing to the game to the point that he makes not starting him impossible, that's when UConn kind of takes off here. I think that he will end up being the guy at the five. I am curious how long that will take. I think that it will take some time to kind of balance itself out. It's always tricky when you have a transfer coming in, starting on the bench, and maybe taking away a starting spot from a guy that's been a senior and been around the program for 4 years. Um, some difficult conversations will be had in that time, and we'll see how long that ends up taking. But that's never an easy thing to do, and I'll be very curious and interested to see how long that ends up taking. For me, the much bigger concern is kind of the point guard spot, right? And if you remember, it took Tristan Newton until February to really acclimate to what being a UConn point guard in this system and in this offense is supposed to be. And in that time, while he was kind of figuring out what the expectations were and how to play that role, he had Andre Jackson on the floor with him. Andre Jackson is a guy that is now in the NBA, that is starting for the Bucks, that is a terrific passer, that was a secondary point guard on the floor, and oh, by the way, happened to be 6'7" and maybe the best athlete in college basketball that year. It eased the burden of the transition that Tristan had, getting used to playing point guard in the Big East, moving up from East Carolina. Aiden is probably kind of on that same trajectory in learning how to be able to play this point guard spot and this role and do this job in this system, in this offense. Hassan, I love him, but he ain't Andre fucking Jackson. Okay. He's not at that level. And as a result, what we're seeing is an offense that just is not as crisp as it was the last two seasons. The shots that they are getting are not quite as easy as they were the last couple of years, which, yeah, it feels like an obvious thing to say. Four NBA players left the program, right? Two guys that were top 7 picks and two more guys that are going to be in and around the fringes of the NBA for a long time. The timing is not perfect when it comes to running these sets and running these offenses. There are plays where UConn is creating the open threes and the guy with the ball in his hands maybe isn't necessarily seeing it as quickly as he needs to, or he's not making the pass on target the way that he needs to be doing it. I think that the screeners aren't quite getting the guards as open because the timing maybe isn't quite as right in the actions and the movements within some of these sets. The rim pressure is different because Donovan Clingan isn't rolling to the basket, and defenses don't have to be quite as concerned about finding a way to be able to cut that off, especially when you don't have passers like Tristan Newton or Cam Spencer or Andre Jackson out there. Defenses what I mean by that is that defenses aren't necessarily changing what they have to do or scheming as drastically to be able to cut that off. And I think the biggest thing is last year, UConn essentially functioned with 3 point guards on the floor with Steph Castle, Cam Newton, and Tinu. And this year, if they play with 2 point guards on the floor, that means that Aiden and Hassan are out there together. And that completely changes what UConn is defensively and the size that we see on the floor. I think it's very clear, and if you haven't been able to read between the lines, you should be able to, that Hurley likes when he has bigger guards. He likes the size that you can get when you put a guy like a 6'4" Tristan Newton out there with a 6'3" Cam Newton, who are both bigger and physical, and play them next to big athletic wings. In 2023, it was Tristan Newton and Jordan Hawkins, who was like 6'4", and Andre Jackson at the 3, right? Like, he likes having size in that backcourt and on that perimeter, and playing Haas out there with Aiden is just, it's different. It changes the makeup of what UConn's team looks like on the floor and what they can be defensively. And that's a hard thing to adjust to when you go from having a lot of really good passers to having guys that are more scorers, and without having necessarily a true point guard on the floor, especially a guy that understands the system and what they're trying to do in Aiden. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description. Now that college basketball season is back in full swing, I need to remind you guys about our partners over at Autograph, where the real college hoops fans reside. The Autograph app curates all of the best content for every sports fan and every sports fan's favorite team. Podcasts, blogs, analysis. It's all there without the nonsense from the talking heads that don't actually watch the games. And there's a bonus. Consuming content on the Autograph app earns you coins that can be redeemed for rewards for things like no-fee tickets or signed jerseys from your favorite players. There are a couple new features in the app that I need to let you guys know about as well. Autograph Replay gives you a quick hitting summary of the previous day's news so you can keep track of all the important things going on with your favorite teams. And Autograph Rooms allows you to chat in real time with the true voices of fandom within your team's community. So go to the link in the description or scan that QR code on your screen and download the Autograph app. The good news is, right now, that there is enough talent on these wings, there is enough talent on the roster to be able to make up for it in the short term. What I mean by that is UConn should be able to beat Memphis with the guys that they have, because Alex Caravan will be the best player on the floor. Solo Ball will be probably the best guard on the floor. Liam McNeely is as talented as anybody that Memphis has. And I think even Terrace Reed is better than the guy that will be playing his position on the Memphis roster. UConn just has more talent, and that should be able to be enough to get it done against the Memphis team that has gone through as much turmoil and turnover this offseason as anybody in college basketball. Jaden Ross coming along nicely too. Like he might be one of the better NBA prospects on the floor. I don't think either Colorado or Michigan State is all that intimidating right now. Colorado for obvious reasons. Michigan State just because they didn't do this stuff this offseason that a lot of other programs did this offseason to try to find a way to get better in the transfer portal. There are real questions about this Michigan State program and kind of what Jaden Akins turns into this year. And even if UConn ends up being the best version of themselves this season, beating North Carolina or Auburn or Iowa State on a neutral floor is never going to be an easy thing to do. That's assuming they get to the Maui title game, right? Any of those three teams could get there. Any of those three teams could make a Final Four. Any of those three teams, frankly, could win a national title this season. And there would be absolutely no shame and no overarching opinions that could be made from losing any of those teams. Auburn might be the best team in America right now, point blank, period. And if UConn loses to them, it is what it is. I think right now, in this moment, where we are, UConn is one of the 8 to 10 best teams in college basketball, the way that they are currently playing. They also have a ton of upside, in my opinion, because the growth that their guards have the potential to make, right? Because of Jaden Ross and his potential development and what he can turn into, because of what they can look like if Terrace Reed can get to the point where he can play 25 to 28 minutes a game, things like that, right? I do believe that there is enough talent in a player like Aiden Mahaney, where once you get to February, he's going to look like a different guy than he looks in November. Remember, even as recently as January 2023, Tristan Newton looked like a guy that may not make it through the end of the season at UConn. There were real rumors about him transferring out at the end of the year of the 2023 season. And I think you can make the argument that when you put it in the context of teams with a real chance to win a national title, somewhere the teams that are in that like top 8, top 10, top 12 range, that UConn has as much room to grow to hit their ceiling as anybody, with maybe the exception of Alabama and maybe the exception of Duke, right? And I think that's a good place to be if you can continue to grow. I think the bigger picture here and where I kind of stand is that the only reason there is any level of, and I don't think that there really is, but the only reason there would be any level of concern or consternation with this group is because the standard that has been set over the course of the last 24 months, right? They have been head and shoulders above everybody else in college basketball for basically 24 consecutive months, with the exception of one 4-week stretch in January of 2023. And the issues that UConn is having right now pale in comparison to some of the issues that they had in January of 2023. And the reason that any of that, if there is any of that concern and consternation exists, is a byproduct of the expectation that is now existing within and externally of this UConn program. If it was December 2021 right now, and we had just seen those 4 performances in bye games, and we've seen what Alex Caravan can be and the improvement of solo ball, and you got Aiden Mahaney coming in, and you can get excited about what Terrace Reed can be, the level of positivity and excitement would be out of control, right? UConn Twitter would be sitting here hyping up how we're a top 10 team and how much better UConn is than anybody else in the Big East, and why they're better than Marquette and why they're better than Creighton and why they're better than St. John's and all of these other things. But you win a couple titles in a row, and suddenly the growing pains of a team that lost 4 starters to the NBA, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 starters to the NBA, and replaced them with 2 transfers that are borderline starters themselves right now. It's kind of a shock to the system. Like, this is what normal college basketball teams go through when they have that level of turnover. This is what a normal college basketball offseason in the era of the transfer portal NIL looks like. This is what it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be able to lose Jordan Hawkins, Andre Jackson, Adama Sanogo, and then turn around and be an absolute juggernaut again. That's not normal. This is normal. And I I think the best way to sum it up is that I don't think UConn this year is going to be rolling over everybody by 20 or 25 points on a nightly basis this season. I don't think they are quite as talented as they've been. I don't think that they have quite as good of a guard play. And I think that there are a lot of things that they have to figure out in terms of what they are going to do differently, because I'm not sure that you can necessarily do it the exact same way as you've done it the last couple of years when you don't have that many passers and playmakers on the floor together. It just is what it is. But that doesn't mean they can't be Final Four good. That doesn't mean that they can't win a Big East title. It doesn't mean they can't win a national championship this year. It just, you have to trust the process on this one, because it's going to be a process to get where they need to be able to go in the long term. Again, that is what's normal in the world of college basketball, and what UConn did last year is not normal. It is the exception that proves the rule. And if you give it time, and you trust the staff, and you trust the development, and you back the players, I think that it's going to be just fine, and you're really going to enjoy what this team can be in the next 3 to 4 months, hopefully starting with Maui. And one last note, I do think it's worth noting that the last 5 days have been massive for the Big East. It's no secret that the start of the Big East regular season was not the greatest. It seems like Villanova were taking some losses, and Seton Hall was taking some losses, and Xavier wasn't really blowing people out, and Providence wasn't really blowing people out. Butler took a bad loss, but Butler also just beat SMU. Xavier just beat Wake Forest by 15. The middle of the league, the Providences of the world, won a couple games by blowouts. Marquette just went on the road to Maryland and beat them, and followed that up by beating Purdue at home by 18 points. There are a few teams that aren't quite pulling their weight yet, but the league overall, I think, has really helped themselves in the last 5 days. They've started to build up a bit of momentum, and if you have a good run over the course of the next 2 weeks with all these MTEs, I think some of those early issues will be a thing of the past. What's really important here, and something to keep an eye on, is how many of these Big East teams in these MTEs can win the first game and get on the winner's side of the bracket. It changes everything. Instead of getting games against, maybe a mid-major team here, or, a team from the bottom of the ACC there on the loser side, you're going to have a chance to play against and maybe even beat top 10, top 15, top 20 teams in college basketball. So on the Thursdays of these weeks, the first rounds of these games, or these MTEs, that's when you really need the Big East to find a way to be able to get some wins, to make sure that the strength of schedule and some of those metrics get a little bit better. So that's something to keep an eye on here. We will have a preview of the Maui Invitational coming up later this week. Hopefully we will have a guest on to join us. There's some things that are still in the works with that, so I don't want to tease it too much, but keep an eye on the Top Dogs feed, keep an eye on the Field of 68 YouTube channel, because hopefully there will be a fun pod coming up here very soon. Until then, please rate, review, like, subscribe, do all of those things that will make me happy as a podcaster, and we will see you guys coming up later this